Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings.
You were feeling that one, John.
I was, yes, I was.
Speaking about feeling that one, how about our good friend John Blickman? He's always feeling that one, huh?
He is, indeed. He's very sensitive that way.
Right. Oh, he'll reach around and touch it. He'll touch a man. I'm just saying.
Well, his customer service is exemplary, yes.
Right. A real hands-on guy, that John Blickman.
Yes.
I'll tell you, if you see him at the Homebrewers Conference, make sure to say I said hi.
I will indeed.
Make sure to fondle him for me. Well, and if you appreciate...
I'll restrict myself to that wet willy.
Right. If you appreciate how John Blickman fondles all of you through his kind, generous support of the show, fondle John back by sending an email to feedback at blickmanengineering.com and telling him how much you appreciate that John has been taking care of everybody for such a long time now, and he's had many reasons and opportunities to cancel his sponsorship, but one way or another, we get him to come around, and stick with us. So I think it's the fact that you guys all email him and tell him that you enjoy the show that it makes a difference. And hey, if you're in the market for some new gear, check it out. I was in Chicago. Let me tell you a story here. I was in Chicago doing distilling class.
Tell us.
And I went by Maplewood Brewery and Distillery, and the guys there were awesome. They had these great beer and great distilled spirits, and it was funny because they were saying, all the crap I bought they're like, if we look at it, it's all stuff that has been mentioned on the Brewing Network. They're like, this is all, we bought all this stuff because of you. Oh, well, all right. It was good stuff, and they were happy with it. It was just, they were like, yeah, the advertising does work on the Brewing Network. Imagine that. I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of cool. Anyways, great guys. We ended up drinking there, and then they took me to the local bar, and they wouldn't let me pay for anything, and I drank a ridiculous amount. But, hey, I made it back alive, just barely. I left them there, still drinking. I'm like, look, I gotta, I gotta get up at like 6:30 for a distilling class, and they were wonderful. I had a great time. I love those guys. Maplewood Brewery, if you're in Chicago, check it out. Good folks.
It just goes to show that we are quality people with quality values and good sponsors. Quality sponsors. That's it.
John, I told you about lying to the listeners.
No, you just told me about talking too much.
Don't be lying. Don't be lying to the listeners, John. See, that could have been another segue. Speaking of lying to the listeners, Porno Steve.
Hey.
What's our first question of the evening? We're going to do a live Q&A with this kind of a little random collection of interesting questions. If you're listening live, you can ask some questions of the lovely Bevo in the chat room, or you could try calling. It may or may not work.
We'll try to figure it out.
888-401-BEER.
It's worth a shot.
It's worth a shot.
No? You're nodding? No?
Well, worth...
We'll see.
I mean, is the show worth it? I mean, that's...
Look, one way or another, it's going to be entertaining, so let's do it.
I mean, don't go on a payphone and try it, but...
Right, right, yeah. If it's costing you any money, please, for God's sakes, don't try it. But if you're listening live, you can just get in the chat and do it that way.
Yes.
All right. Or send your questions into brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com.
All right. There you go. Big thanks and a unique question. BN Team. Firstly, huge thanks. Went from newbie to Cicerone, a semi-pro brewer in Amsterdam, largely due to your programming. Now on to the odd problem. I'm brewing at a think tank, and one of their projects is using spent grain to grow fungus for insulation panels. I might as well be still living in Berkeley. What they must do is perform the boil with the grain still in water, no lauter after mash, just go right into the boil. Mm-hmm. It's my job to eliminate stringency and tannins in the final product. My questions are, 1, how long does it take to sterilize grains? They do this because they can't grow the fungus if lactobacillus is present, but I can't imagine it takes 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. 2, to avoid astringency, do I just need to keep my pH down close to 5 and keep an eye on it? Or will the heat by itself produce tannins? Decoctions seem to avoid this issue. Mm-hmm. Number 3, I was thinking of performing a no-sparge brew to avoid possible tannin extraction. Will this thinner mash adversely affect tannin development? Thanks in advance.
I think there's so many great questions. I could sit there and talk with this guy for a long time about this. I think it's really cool. So first off, you're not going to sterilize the grains, right? You can...
Not unless you pressure cook.
Right. And so there could be mold spores on the grains already that could grow a mold that you don't want. Those are going to be resistant to boiling, or can be resistant to boiling. So like John's saying, if you don't get the temperature of it's like 250 wet, that's not going to happen. So they're not going to be sterilized. But if the concern is lactobacillus or other lactic acid producing bacteria, you boil and you pretty much got it. They're not going to survive even just a few minutes of the boil. The only reason it could possibly survive would be, maybe there's some up on the sides of the kettle, or maybe, the grains aren't fully heated and wetted throughout, or something bizarre like that. Still, you boil it for like 15 minutes. Consider it free of any bacteria that would cause lactic acid production, right? The other is the tannins and the astringency. I think, the pH for one, and then the higher sugar content, 2, would, prevent most tannin extraction. Going to a thinner mash overall, I think, could promote some tannin extraction. So maybe you want to go with the thicker thicker mash, thicker boil, and then drain that off and go ahead and sparge. And, just make sure your sparge water is adjusted. And you should be okay. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of tannins out of it. I think boiling it for a long time might be an issue. What I would suggest, though, is go ahead and do a regular old, brew with your lauter and, get your wort and make your beer that way. But get yourself a jacketed mash tun, right? And so once you've done everything, leave it a little wet, and then go ahead and turn the jackets on and fire up that mash tun. And if you got a mixer in there, stir it up and heat it up to, if you get that mash up to like 175, 180 degrees, I think you're going to essentially kill off any lactobacillus that's in there, or any, bacteria. You
can effectively pasteurize,
right.
4 log, 5 log, temperature.
Yeah, as soon as you're like 160, wet all the way through, and by the end of the mash and the end of the lauter, I think you're wet all the way through. I don't think that's an issue. I would mix it just to make sure that everything is homogeneous and you're getting heat all the way through. Otherwise, I'd raise the temperature even higher if you can't mix it, just so that every area has hit, 160, 161 Fahrenheit. And then I think you're good. And so you get to make great beer. And then you can still go ahead and heat these things up, this mash up, and do your fungus growing or your mold growing or whatever it is for insulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think look at the pH, and you might try, and after as Jamil says, after the brew, and you've extracted the wort, then maybe acidify that mash some more, get it down towards 4.5 pH. That will minimize, the likelihood that you'll extract tannins if you take that mash up to a boil, and that would, potentially even make it, more suitable for this as a fungus growth medium. To minimize contamination.
Right. There you go. All right. Next one, Steve.
Well Water Pro Brewery. Hey guys, can you elaborate on pro breweries who utilize a well for their supply? What to look for in a well, how and when to monitor quality, how to manage water flow seasonally? Thanks. Broad.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few breweries I know of specifically that do well water. I mean, I think as far as managing water seasonally, if you're talking about like the changes in, water composition, then I'd suggest going with the Lamont water test kit, the BrewLab Pro for your commercial brewery. That's what we use at Heretic, and I think that's a quality product. Also sponsor the show. I can highly recommend that from personal experience. But if you're talking about the volume water, quality of water, then, you need to have a storage system for your water, and you would offload out of the well into, if the well is seasonal in any way, then you'd have to offload it to storage or to a above ground storage of some kind.
Yeah, so you got some volume buffer.
Yeah. Now, what about quality concerns, John? I mean, most well water, doesn't it tend to be higher mineral content?
Yeah, most well waters are higher mineral content, and depends on the aquifer. What the and the region. What terms of what kinds of contaminants there may be. If you were going to brew commercially from a well, you really need to take that water and have it thoroughly tested, like a city would for all the
arsenic and
all the regular
cadmium
contaminants
and all
that
stuff,
state water suppliers have to comply with.
But don't you do that when you first drill a well?
Yeah. So I mean that should tell you your pesticide levels, residuals, your total halogenic acids, nitrates, cadmium, and all the other little lead, and all the other little contaminants that need to be regulated. Assuming you pass that, then you just need to get the BrewLab, as you say, and look at your calcium, magnesium, total alkalinity, sodium, chloride, and sulfate, and look at those parameters, to your recipes, and figure out where you may want to adjust those parameters. You may be doing sparge water acidification, or calcium additions, or you may decide that you need, if you're in a region such as northern Minnesota and North Dakota, where you're on a lot of limestone and have very, very alkaline water, you may need to do reverse osmosis or heavy acid additions to drop the alkalinity, depending on the styles of beer you want to brew. I know of a couple of breweries that have installed RO systems in situations like that, because they had alkalinity of 300 ppm as calcium carbonate, and that was just too much alkalinity to neutralize with strong acids without affecting the flavor of the water. So they were forced to go to reverse osmosis to filter that alkalinity out and then build the calcium and other minerals back up. It all starts with the water report. Find out what you have, and then if you need some advice, send us that information that you get, and we can help more from there.
There you go. And check out that Lamont kit if you're wanting to check out your water. It's a great product. I use it. I think it's well worth having if you're serious about being a commercial brewery. You should be testing your water. All right, let's take a short break. We'll have more of your questions right after this.
The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
Do you like beer? They make beer.
Watch out!
Do you like friends and fun? They make friends and fun.
Watch out!
Do you still like to have a good time? The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
The 21st Amendment in San Francisco, located at 563 2nd Street, 2 blocks from the building where baseball is seen and played. Try their beers in the pub or try them in the can, featuring
Monk's Blood.
Made with real monk.
Watch out!
So why not have the best time of your life? Go to the 21A and Sean O'Sullivan will personally greet you with a can of
Monk's Blood. The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
This advertisement is not in any way affiliated nor associated with the 21st Amendment Bar and Pub, nor its subsidiaries or affiliates. This telecast is not copywritten by the 21st Amendment for the private use of the Brewing Network. Any use of this telecast without Jamil Zainashev's consent is prohibited. Suck it, JP.
Your support of the Brewing Network means everything to us. We couldn't produce shows without you. And we love giving you something extra for that support, like Brew Your Own magazine. You already know it's a great brewing magazine full of recipes, equipment how-tos, discussions of beer styles, and brewing techniques. Whether you're new to brewing and just starting out or you're an old pro, you'll always learn something from the articles in Brew Your Own. Plus, there are amazing special issues like plans for building a Brutus 10 system, 250 classic clone recipes, and the Homebrewer's Answer Book. Brew Your Own magazine and BYO.com are awesome resources for any brewer, whether for yourself or as a gift. When you subscribe or resubscribe from the Brewing Network homepage, you directly support programs like this. Get a great magazine and support the Brewing Network. Subscribe to Brew Your Own right from thebrewingnetwork.com.
Say hello to my little friend.
You've heard about White Labs Pure Pitch yeast. Pure Pitch is yeast grown right in its final packaging. That means yeast that has never been exposed to the environment. And White Labs Pure Pitch yeast for homebrewers is now available to everyone at homebrew retailers nationwide. Easy to use, perfectly sized, and ready to pitch. White Labs yeast, packaged using their Flex Cell process, ensures the purest yeast on the market. Visit whitelabs.com to learn more about Pure Pitch, Flex Cell technology, and how it's created. Then visit a homebrew retailer near you for your own perfectly sized package of Pure Pitch yeast. And you can say hello to your own little friend. www.whitelabs.com.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
All right, we're back. Having a fun old time in the old studio tonight. More questions, Porno Steve.
Yes.
Does your mother refer to you as Porno or Steve?
She doesn't know about any of that.
She call you Pornography Steven?
Yes, she calls me by my full name.
Pornography Steven?
When I'm in trouble, that's what she says.
Pornography Steven! Get over
down
here
right now. Yes.
Pornography Steven.
My poor mother. All right, brewery in planning. Bright tank question.
Yes.
Jamil, I seem to remember recently hearing you talk about unitanks and bright tanks, saying that you use the conical unitank for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Did I understand correctly, and can you please elaborate? What are the pros and cons of dropping the yeast and temp and using the conical as a bright tank? Why do so many breweries use bright tanks? Thank you for the clarification.
So, the difference between a bright tank and a unitank is, well, the bright tank has a dish bottom, right? So the kind of the theory is, well, you'd pump over from your fermenter over to your bright tank and then let it settle, and there's a big broad dish there. So I guess in theory, maybe you could get more beer out. I don't know. I was talking to Matt Brynelson at Firestone about this very thing when we were setting up, and I'm just like, so is there any reason to really get a bright tank? I said, I see no value in it because I could just use a unitank instead. And he goes, yeah, there's no reason to, unless the cone does not hold as much beer as, a straight wall with a dish bottom. And so if you're really limited by the height of the tank and you want to get more beer packed into a space, then a dish bottom's going to get you a little bit more beer in there. But, the unitank, I can use that for fermenting. I can use it for everything. The problem with a dish bottom is the reason you don't use those for everything is that all your yeast would settle on the bottom. You wouldn't be able to get your yeast out. It's nice having the cone bottom. It's easier to dump a lot of the yeast and really remove a lot of the material versus trying to scrub it all out or blast it all out with water afterwards. Yeah. So
brewers very often serve from bright tanks too.
Right. I mean, one of the things it seems to be more common to be able to get a bright tank, a dish bottom that is capable of higher atmospheric pressures, but you should be able to get a unitank that way too. I think it's just more common to find them in bright tanks. And so, if you're on the used market or something like that and you want to quickly carbonate into the bright tank or something like that and you want to get up to 60 psi, well then, or 30 psi, not 60, 30 psi, then, then you're maybe more likely to find a bright tank that way. But there's really I find no reason to use it because for me, just getting another unitank, if I want to use it as a fermenter, I can. So that's kind of.
But I mean, if you had, if you're like a small brew pub and you have fermenters that you're using for fermentation, then maybe you have bright tanks that you would serve beer from for an extended period of time, and you wouldn't want to potentially tie up a fermenter for a couple weeks serving a beer.
Right. Well, a lot of times they'll have serving tanks, specifically so unjacketed tanks that go into a cold storage, and they'll use those as serving tanks. So they're built like bright tanks. They're just no cone on them, and they'll be unjacketed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's your answer.
Yeah.
Q. All right, next question. I read, I think in How to Brew, that malting activates beta-glucanase. Does this mean that malted wheat, rye, or oats don't provide the body that unmalted versions of those grains provide? Does it also mean that malted versions don't provide the same lautering problems? Thanks, John and Jamil's illegitimate son.
I don't remember him. Do you, Jamil?
I mean, it could have been that night back in Denver. I don't know.
Yeah. Denver. Don't remember.
Vivo unwilling to listen.
She took her earphones out.
Malting does a lot to break up the beta-glucans, which are in the cell walls, in between the starch molecules, the starch granules in the wheat or oats and rye and so on, in the endosperm. So, yeah, unmalted will provide more beta-glucan than a malted version would. So you do get more body from unmalted wheat than, say, malted wheat. But brewing with unmalted wheat, a high proportion of unmalted wheat or rye or oats, can be a real bugger to lauter. It's like trying to lauter a bowl of, porridge. That is essentially, unmalted oats, but simply unmalted oats, raw oats that have been flaked to aid their solubilization. And when you cook them up, you've got porridge. There's no way you're going to drain the liquid out of that and leave the oats behind. So there's a very good reason why we malt the grains that we brew with. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't go overboard adding unmalted oats, rye, or wheat to your brews in the attempts to get lots more body. You can easily go overboard on that.
All right. Next question.
Did I capture that question well, I think?
I think so.
I believe so. Stainless versus glass fermentation flavor.
Ah.
I could go on and on about how much I like listening and have learned from your show, but I know you guys don't really like all that, so I'll cut to the chase. When I was in Italy last year, I had the opportunity to taste the same wine produced in 3 different fermentation vessels, which were chestnut wood, stainless steel, and glass. The wines tasted drastically different. Needless to say, the barrel-aged had rounder, softer tannins and tasted the best. However, from a homebrew perspective, the most interesting was the difference between the stainless and the glass fermenters. The stainless steel had very bright, pleasantly sharp, pronounced flavors. In contrast, the glass tasted pretty dull and subdued, even a little muddled. Overall, the stainless was by far superior. They tasted like 2 different wines. Thinking about it from a homebrew perspective, I wonder if I'm hurting my potential to make high-quality brews by using glass carboys. Judging from this wine experiment, that is certainly the case. How much, if any, flavor impact do you think using stainless steel has on homebrew as compared to glass or plastic? Sorry about the 2-part question, but I'm also looking into purchasing a stainless fermenter. Do you think it is worth it to dish out the $400 for the SS conical? Will the $200 SS stainless bucket do the trick? Is the valve for collecting tupid yeast really worth the extra $200? We'll still be able to use the bucket as a primary and secondary fermentation vessel.
So I got 2 things on this. The first is, I would wonder if it was the power of suggestion, and it's like, it's like tasting something out of the stainless, tasting it out of the glass, and go, oh man, it sounds like he's really wanting to buy stainless. And so there is and you got to ask yourself, sometimes you will fool yourself into the thinking of, oh, it tastes better because it came out of stainless, or it tastes better because, and we see this all the time. It's like, well, it was locally grown, so it tastes better. It's like, yeah, but it was grown in a really crappy farm, and it doesn't taste as good as what you could get out of state. Or, it's this and that. It's it's the trendy, cool thing that affects all of us. And so, the thing we love and we want, and so we believe it's better, it is better. So I'd say, do a blind tasting. I don't doubt that there was differences between them, but
It could have been other factors.
Right. I'd be careful about that. And then the other is I would believe that the differences are far more related between stainless and glass, or, a oxygen barrier plastic like the better bottles. I would say the difference is more related to the shape of the fermenter versus the actual material it's made out of. As long as it's generally inert to any sort of interaction with the beer or wine, as long as there's no oxygen. And
wine is a different beast than beer.
Sure. The acidity and the alcohol and all that. So I don't. With a wood barrel, there's air coming in, and a lot of other factors. But when I was homebrewing, I did an experiment on fermentation. I didn't take it very far, but I did some fermentations with a glass carboy with a corny keg and with a stainless conical. And I did see a little quicker and a little bit better attenuation with the stainless conical. And I was surmising at that time that, the convection currents that are set up in the conical were perhaps promoting that. I don't know this for a fact, but, the fermenter vessel shape has a great impact on the finished product and attenuation. So, for example, the Yorkshire Square that we were talking about in a show a couple of shows ago, the square corners actually act as traps and dead zones for fermentation, so you don't get as much fermentation through there, and that actually results in slightly higher diacetyl levels in the finished beer. If it's round, you don't get those dead corners. So, the amount of mixing in the vessel. Now, there could be other factors, how things were done, but that I would surmise is the difference. That said, I won pretty much most of my awards homebrewing in glass carboys or plastic better bottles. I did all the conical stuff for a while, and then I gave them away because they were more hassle than they were worth to me. Because I was doing a lot of brewing. So I think doing a lot of brewing and paying attention to fermentation and all that is far more important than any particular piece of gear. That said, stainless conical is pretty damn cool.
Yep. They have their merits. Just the other day, a blog post came out on the Brewlosophy website where they compared a plastic carboy to a glass carboy, and long story short, using a blind triangle test, they could not find a significant difference between the beers.
Right,
so,
because they're shaped very similarly, and I don't think you would find a difference there. I think when you get the conical, or like in my case with the corny keg, the tall thin corny keg, horrible for fermenting in. You don't get nearly the attenuation. It's the wrong thing to ferment in. So
you think we kind of need more information for this as well?
Right. I don't doubt that there could be a difference, but again, it's going to be based on the shape of the fermenter, not the material it's made
Not
of.
as much, yeah.
So if you had a plastic conical, I think you would get just the same effect as you get out of a stainless conical.
Yeah. Okay. And there could have been a huge difference in the headspace of the two fermenters, too.
True.
There are many other factors other than just simply fermenter material that could be affecting his perception of the flavors,
So there you go. All right.
Yeah.
Let's do one more, and then we'll take a short break.
Okay. Hi, guys. I do 2-gallon all-grain batches in a stainless steel pot on my stove. I chill the whole pot in an ice bath in my sink. Will the drastic change in temperature from my stove to the ice bath damage my pot? Could the stress on the pot lead to off flavors in my beer? Thanks.
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, not damaging it any more than, just normal heating and cooling. Anyways, if you cooled it slower, would it, the metal fatigue, I guess, would be the only thing. But really, you're going to have to heat and cool that pot, like, how many thousands of times to really, And
I think it's one of those things that's like, as long as it's not actually rusting or there's no
right. Well,
stress in
so every time you heat up metal and cool it down,
sure,
you're expanding
shape.
You're expanding it and contracting it.
Yeah.
And it's like taking a paper clip, bending it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Eventually it breaks. Why?
Yeah.
Because the metal fatigues.
Yeah.
The same thing would happen in the pot, but,
the thermal stresses are real
But
small.
it'll take time.
It's going to take a lot of, I wouldn't worry about it. I worry more about the quality of the beer versus, you could cool it slower or something like that and eke out 20 more uses out of it. I just don't think over the 1,000 uses or 2,000 uses it's really worth compromising your beer to save a 2-gallon pot. And I don't think it's negatively affecting the flavor. I think you're doing the right thing, trying to rapidly chill it down. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to. 300 series single phase material. You're not going to undergo any phase change. It's simply thermal expansion and contraction. There's nothing constraining the pot, as it shrinks and expands and contracts. So, you're not going to affect it, and you're not going to affect the beer by chilling it quickly. You're not going to negatively affect the beer by chilling it quickly. The wort, that is.
Okay, there you go. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this.
A few things happened 30 years ago.
ARPANET migrated to TCP/IP, and the Internet was born. Revenge of the Jedi was renamed Return of the Jedi and opened in theaters. Mila Kunis and Emily Blunt were born, beginning a rad fantasy in my mind.
But all of that pales next to the fact that HopTech opened its doors and began blowing homebrewers right out of their mash tuns. HopTech doesn't fuck around. Real people shipping awesome shit straight to you. Their new website is fast and easy to navigate. Or just call 800-379-4677 and let badass bitch Jade and the gadget guy Roberto blow their warm load of customer service all over you. So visit the site or visit the store in Dublin, California, and support those that support you. Get your brewing on at hoptech.com.
Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. This is Jamel Zainasheff, and I want to tell you about Heretic Evil Twin. You might be familiar with my homebrew recipe, which uses massive late hopping to create a balance between the malty sweet and the hoppy bitter, along with an outrageous malt and hop character. I wanted a beer with the same bold hop and malt character, so we played around with the homebrew recipe until we were able to make a great commercial version too. We've created a beer rich in malt character, full of caramel, toast, biscuit, and an ever so subtle roast note. On top of that, we piled in an insane amount of Citra and Columbus hops at the end of the boil, as well as in dry hopping. This damn-the-cost approach to hopping gives Heretic's Evil Twin a great blast of citrus and tropical fruit that can't be matched by any other hop. The result is a bold, malty, hoppy, but easy-drinking beer. This is our top seller, our flagship beer, and I couldn't be prouder of it. Cheers.
To find Heretic beers near you, click on Find Some at hereticbrewing.com. Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality homebrewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and the freshest ingredients, backed by the best customer service in the business. Do you like to mash using efficient fly sparging, but would like an easy way to heat your strike and sparge water? Enter the new Brewer's Edge electric mash water heater, a plug-in, anywhere, precisely controlled heater for strike and sparge water. Ditch the fumes and second burner and make mashing easy. Go to williamsbrewing.com today and browse their vast selection. That's williamsbrewing.com. Orders placed by 4 p.m. Pacific Time weekdays ship the same day. Brewing is easy the Williams way.
That's it. I've had it. I am never putting hops in my beer again.
What? Why?
It's just too ridiculous. Insane prices, stupid contracts, high shipping costs, crappy selection.
Dude, you need Nico Brew.
Nico Brew will rock your f***ing face right the f*** off your f***ing skull. $5 shipping to all 50 states, plus fantastic international rates get you low prices on Nico Brew's great selection of hops and more. Whether you're a home brewer, a pro brewer, or a homebrew shop owner, Nico Brew can get you the hops you need in increments big and small, single orders, spot buys, or full contracts. And there's only one place to join the uber special secret elite bare bones club where you'll get the best deals anywhere.
Holy shit.
NicoBrew.com. NIKOBREW. Nico Brew, your bare bones buddy in the brewing business.
Grog tags aren't just for labeling your home brews to hand out to your friends. They're the perfect way to round out your personal brewing marketing. Bringing your latest beer to a funeral? Craft a metal sign to go with it. Heading out to little Liam's bar mitzvah? Grog Tag custom bottle caps are awesome. Couldn't get out of jury duty this year? Grog Tag the hell out of the deliberation room with reusable labels. Grog Tag has an awesome array of products just waiting to be customized by you. Metal signs, coasters, tasting mats, bottle caps, tap handles. It's all there waiting for your designs at Grog Tag. Liven up your next party with the widest selection of custom products ever offered by a sponsor of the Brewing Network. Grog Tag. At least your beer will look good.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
We put the technical in.
The testicles.
Yes.
We put the hoe in the ho. Speaking of putting the hoe in, have you gotten enough, John?
Not lately.
I bet you'd love more, right?
Yes, I would love more Brew Strong.
AdamandEve.com wants to give you more. They give you more by sponsoring the show, so don't be bashing on the Adam and Eve. They're paying, so you don't have to. I just keep that in mind. And if you use the offer code, so if you're offended, you just take a chill pill because they're paying money, so you don't have to pay for the shows. You can choose to pay for the shows or just relax for a few minutes. All right, so they're giving you, use the offer code Jamil, Jamil, at AdamandEve.com. You're going to get 10 free gifts. They're going to give you a sexy surprise for her, a sexy surprise for him, and a little something you both enjoy, a bumper something. Plus, you're going to get 6 full-length adult DVD movies and free shipping. So there's your 10. Free shipping, 6 DVDs, 3 other gifts, and you can't beat it. AdamandEve.com, use offer code Jamil, Jamil. All right. Next question, pornographic Stephen.
Hello, gentlemen. I am taking a master's in brewing and have to decide on a thesis topic. In your opinions, what is a topic about which a thesis-level understanding would best improve the beer I brew? Does that make sense? Christ, I hope my thesis is better written than that question.
couple English classes, maybe. Couple writing classes.
So thesis level.
I thought about this
topic,
and I was thinking, I don't know, you'd say, John, but I would go with something to do with fermentation. I mean, it tends to be the least understood by most brewers, and it tends to have the greatest impact on the quality of the finished beer.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, there's other things you could do. I mean, you could study a lot of other things, on any ingredient in the supply chain and how, the various parameters of it, conditions of it, like hop oils or, proteins and malts or whatever affect the final product. Or you could look at water and, the minerals in the water and how they affect the final product. I mean, you could look at the boil, you could look at the mash, you could look at, any of these number of things, but I still really think fermentation is the one that really has the greatest impact. At least for me, that's what I would.
So maybe something that's not completely well understood, and that's
pretty much
questions.
That's pretty much most of brewing.
Yeah, yes. It's all just theory, right?
There's some things that are known and known better, and I mean, there's a lot of research that has been done, and a lot of brilliant people have put a lot of effort into figuring out a lot of stuff. But I still think there's so much that's really not 100% known, especially how to manipulate and control a lot of the parameters.
Yeah. We know a lot more about yeast today than we did, even 20 years ago. So I agree that I think yeast role in fermentation, how the environment affects the yeast, would give us continually better understanding of fermentation and beer quality. I think pH changes throughout the brewing process is another good area to look. getting better definition of that. The degree and the degree and direction and magnitude of pH changes throughout the brewing process. Defining those better, because right now mainly we know generalities. We don't know a lot of specifics around pH and how pH changes affect the yeast, for example, and do they change which fatty acids and amino acids they process as a result of pH changes in the process, or vice versa. So there's a lot to explore in fermentation.
Right. I think that's another fruitful area. All right. Next question.
All right. Hey, guys. What would be the result of adding something like donuts or cinnamon rolls to the mash? Aside from the obvious flavor contributions, found a recipe calling for a half dozen chocolate Krispy Kreme donuts and was wondering if the bread would affect the gravity or the clarity or anything else I may not be thinking of. Well, I mean, I think besides all the sugar that's hanging out in it.
Sugar's not a big deal. It'll ferment out really quick and not add a lot of residual flavors. I think that, it just depends on what the proportion is. If you're adding so much sugar that you're adding like 30-40% simple sugars, I think that could be an issue. I think the biggest thing that I would be concerned about would be fats. Maybe the level of fats could be pretty high and something.
Yeah, who knows what's in Krispy Kreme donuts?
Right.
Yeah, and the oxidation of fats can really damage the flavor of the beer.
And promote staling later on. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got the bread itself that's going to be goopy.
Right. The enzymes might break down, any of the starches or whatever. I would think that that's a possibility. This is the fried part of the dough that may not, but...
You mean goopy as in, like, it'll be hard to filter out?
Yeah, you may end up,
clogs,
making the waterability of the mash more difficult.
Right.
The flavors of the donuts, I really don't think would survive the boil. And
now these were chocolate, so maybe they're, I don't know how much 6 Krispy Kremes would relate to. It depends on the rest of the beer. If it's got a lot of, if it's a high grain bill and then 6 donuts is almost nothing, or if it's a small beer and 6 donuts is half the weight of the mash.
He linked the recipe, but
then then it may impact it somewhat a little bit more. I think that would there be a flavor difference? Yes. In a very tightly controlled, I think, triangle test and very tightly controlled brew and fermentation, you'd probably get some subtle differences, but it wouldn't be much. I think it's more just for the fun of it and the saying it. Yeah, the gimmick.
What about the gravity or the clarity? Not so much.
The sugars will add to the gravity. The starches probably won't convert a whole lot. Some of them will maybe, but... clarity, you should be able to get it nice and clear. I wouldn't think it would be that difficult to clarify after that. Would you, John?
I don't think so, but, then again, if
the issue is more the fats.
The fats are... The donut may actually convert.
The starch.
But you may have to mash it quite a long time.
Right.
Stir it vigorously to help break it up.
Yeah, get it mixed in well. Get it exposed to the enzymes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's a solid answer. At least I'll go with that answer.
Cool.
All right. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more of your questions. right after this.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on 2 gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
Since the first time the Brewing Network microphones turned on, More Beer was behind it. More Beer sponsors the programming on the BN because, like you, they love brewing. And like the Brewing Network, they love sharing their knowledge. Morebeer.com isn't just a website to place your next equipment or ingredient order. Morebeer.com also gives you access to free beer information that will make you a better brewer. Go to morebeer.com and click into the Learning Center. You'll find podcasts, technical facts, video tutorials, and more, including access to The Buzz, More Beer's social network of more than 5,000 members. And some of them might even be crazier about beer than you are. Get over to morebeer.com today and take advantage of The Buzz, the forum, the Learning Center, and make sure you're signed up to receive the newest More Beer catalog. More Beer, bringing you absolutely everything for beer making. When I order a beer, I want my server to know more about it than I do. I want someone who enjoys good beer and loves helping others enjoy it too. I want someone who knows how to pour a perfect pint for every beer style. I want a Cicerone.
The Cicerone Certification Program is creating the type of people who help you enjoy great beer. Home brewers and craft beer lovers know beer is more flavorful and complex than ever, and it takes some serious knowledge to store and serve beer right. Cicerones know beer. There are 3 levels in the Cicerone program: Certified Beer Server, Certified Cicerone, and Master Cicerone. Cicerones are truly the sommeliers of beer. The best beer locations have a Certified Cicerone on staff. Relaxed and unpretentious. Cicerones are tested on storing and serving beer, beer styles, flavor and tasting, the brewing process and ingredients, and pairing food with beer. Learn more about your next beer guide at cicerone.org. Certified Cicerone, because it takes top talent to present a perfect pint.
Ken Grossman of Sierra Nevada Brewing Company says making great beer is hard. Making the same great beer every day is harder. Brewers Publications announces its latest release for breweries of any type and size. Quality Management, an essential guide for brewers by Mary Pelletieri. Proper quality management for small, regional, and national breweries is critical. Whether you are an established business or brand new, learn the best ways to create and manage a quality system in your brewery. This book will guide you in developing a comprehensive program that will grow with your brewery, help ensure quality processes in the brewery, and continue providing great beer for your fans. Quality management for breweries is critical for continued success. This guidebook teaches you to integrate quality management in every level of the operation. It will guide you in developing a comprehensive program to ensure quality processes in your brewery. Quality Management, an essential guide for brewers, now available from Brewers Publications. Learn more at brewerspublications.com.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. And we have a question in the chat room, Bevo? Because you can ask questions live.
I do. This is from...
while you're listening to the shows. Yes.
Renwick.
Oh, yes. You know, I always like my wick to be Ren. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, starting it. Sorry, whatever. If I have a starter on a stir plate that develops a thick krausen that covers the surface completely and doesn't seem to move when viewed from above, is the starter still getting the oxygen needed? Should the stir plate be keeping the starter surface clean and the dimple exposed to... Does that make sense? And the dimple exposed to be doing its job of getting oxygen from the surface?
Right. I mean, generally it's exchanging the liquids at the surface so that, they can take in more oxygen. And if you're not getting a clear liquid surface, I mean, I would turn up the speed of the stir plate a little bit more so you're drawing in a little bit more and exchanging the liquid a bit better. It's to keep the yeast in suspension and equally mixed with all the sugars that are there to be fermented and
so he says
take a little more air.
His last starter blew the F out, and it was a product of CO2, so he assumed at some point oxygen must have gotten choked out and the yeast moved on to its next phase.
Yeah. I mean, I'd wonder how much yeast he's putting in and, how much starter wort. Don't put too much yeast into your starters. You need enough wort for them to grow.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you may have too much wort in the flask, and so, it's too deep.
Mm-hmm.
If it's all the way up in the neck,
right,
that may be too deep, and that's why he's not getting a vortex or or even just a dimple showing. And as you're saying, one reason we're putting on a stir plate is to bring the wort continually to the surface and back down, and getting better aeration of the yeast in suspension.
Mm-hmm.
So the krausen could block that to some extent, but hopefully that. I think maybe it's just too deep and you're not getting good exchange.
Yeah. Don't fill
the bottom.
If you're doing an Erlenmeyer, don't fill it all the way up. Leave it, you want it only maybe half full or 2/3 full at most. So you need to get a big enough one so that you have more surface area and that you're getting some effect of the stir plate. All right, let's see if we knock out. We got 2 questions left over from the yeast Q&A. If we can get those in here real quick.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, guys, I'm pretty drunk right now, so disregard any nonsense in what I'm about to ask.
Oh, Steve, you haven't been drinking that much.
There's a lot of modern times on tap right now. Can't blame me. If I make a starter with yeast nutrient, should I also use it in my brew, or does it have all it needs at that point? Are there yeast nutrients other than ammonium phosphate that I should consider? Just tell me everything I need to know about yeast nutrients, please. Thanks.
The most important nutrient for yeast in an all malt wort is zinc. Zinc, oxygen. Those are your 2 things that you need. Otherwise, if it's all malt, there's plenty of free amino nitrogen. I mean, and assuming you're using water with minerals in it, and there's magnesium and a few other things in there, you just need zinc. Your wort's going to be zinc deficient, and you need oxygen. So DAP or any of that other stuff you don't want to use. You've got enough free amino nitrogen.
Right. Yeah. So there's several kinds of yeast nutrients. There's yeast hulls. There's the diammonium phosphate, which is basically fertilizer, and then you have the zinc supplemented yeast nutrients, which may contain any of the above. But as Jamil says, the one thing you want to add is zinc. If you add zinc to your starter, you don't want to add it to the main wort as well. You can overdo zinc, and if you do so, if you exceed like 1 ppm of zinc, you'll start getting goat flavors, very oxidized flavors. But it is critical for good yeast reproduction and acetaldehyde reduction towards the end of fermentation.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
Most worts are quite deficient in zinc. It's the one thing you need to have. All the rest, nah. All right. Last question.
This one's from Andrew Solinsky. Apparently we had his beer on the Vienna Lager show. Cool. I'm sure you've answered this question many times, but I keep seeing conflicting advice. Do you decant starters 2 liters/4 liters? I decant for my ales, but alt and lager yeast tend to not flocculate well. I want to pitch at high Krausen and want as much yeast as possible, which means I should pitch the whole starter. I do not want the acetaldehyde and other stuff in the liquid, which means I should decant and pitch a thicker slurry. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the starter wort itself is nasty. If it's a stirred starter especially, and done warm, I would avoid, putting too much of that into your beer. If it's a starter that's made kind of like a beer, then that's fine to just throw all that in, other than diluting whatever flavor profile you have of that recipe. So I'd just be careful about adding too much of spent starter wort. I'd rather, especially in a big starter, I'd rather either make a small beer first and use the yeast from that, or just put it in the fridge and let it settle out. Give it a day or two to settle out, and then decant, and then use the yeast after that. Or if you wanted a high Kreuzen, settle it in the fridge, and then repitch the yeast into a little bit of starter wort the morning of your brew, and then it'll be at high Kreuzen when you throw it in. So that's how I'd go.
That sounds good.
There you go. You heard it from John. Sounds good. All right.
Yep.
Another fine show. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you especially to our sponsors, the ever great Mr. John Blickman at blickmanengineering.com. Check him out. Check him out at the conference if you see him. Check him out all the events he's at, and especially check him out on the web. Let your local homebrew shop know you're interested in Blickman gear if you're buying something new. And send an email to feedback at blickmanengineering.com and let them know how much you appreciate that they paid for this show. That way you didn't have to pay for it and you got all the goodies for free. Check out the Brewing Network store, thebrewingnetwork.com/store. There's all sorts of goodies in there. I think they have fly swatters. They've got garbage bags. They've got coffee makers, coffee cups. They sell ice cream makers on there now. All sorts of good stuff. And when you buy any of those, imagine a BN logoed ice cream maker.
That's my favorite thing.
It's perfect.
It's
what, like $10?
Yeah, really? It's really cheap.
And you buy that, and that $10 goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network and helps keep programming like this on the air. So check them out today, thebrewingnetwork.com/store. Until then, everybody, brew strong!
Brew strong, everyone.